Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, Ram fans. This is Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are proud members of the Fans First Sports Network. That's fansfirstsports.com. You can also follow us on YouTube. Our channel is at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. You'll hear from my co-host, Tom, on occasion as well. Hey, we're not Rams insiders. We're just longtime fans who love talking about our Los Angeles Rams. Let's get to it. Welcome back, everybody. Episode 480 of Rams Up. I'll be sharing my 13 random thoughts in a moment here, and I also have a preview of another team the Rams will be playing this year. Let's check in on the New Orleans Saints, a team the Rams have a pretty rich history with. Before we get started, let's talk about a Ram who wore number 80 since it is episode 480. And I've already talked about Isaac Bruce. That was 100 episodes ago, believe it or not, one of my favorite Rams of all time. Let's talk about another wide receiver, Billy Waddy, 5'11", 187 pounds, out of Colorado. Rams drafted him in the second round of the 1977 NFL Draft. Kind of forget about him, but he was a very impactful player, caught 3 passes for 75 yards in that Super Bowl game against the Steelers, including a 50-yard completion. Vince Ferragamo was the quarterback in that one. And there was another play where Waddy was wide open down the left sideline. Ferragamo didn't spot him and threw an interception underneath. And yes, the Rams went on to lose that game. Ferragamo sees Waddy on that play. Rams probably would have won that Super Bowl. Waddy is 29th on the Rams' all-time receiving yardage list, within 100 yards of a slew of guys, including Les Josephson. Most of you probably aren't old enough to remember him. Oz Hakeem, Todd Gurley, and Lance Kendricks. Okay, let's kick off my 13 random thoughts with this one. Did NFL executives and coaches really rank Kyren Williams as the 17th best running back in the league? Pretty amazing. I saw the NFL publish their top 100 runs of all time. It was one of those pay-to-see articles, which I do not partake in. I'm just going to tell you, Marshall Faulk's run against the Browns better been in there somewhere, hopefully in the top 10. Let's touch on Brandon Aiyuk real quickly. What is his future? 26 years old, in the final year of his rookie deal. He'd make $14.1 million if he shows up and plays for the 49ers this year, but he wants a raise, a big-time raise. 49ers are up against it, though. Yeah, they got the salary cap room to pay him right now. I mentioned that a few episodes ago, but they already have Deebo Samuel under contract, 3 years, $73.5 million. They signed Christian McCaffrey to a new big deal, highest paid running back in the league. And they also have Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, Javon Hargrave, Fred Warner, and George Kittle under contract, making big money. Hey, they have done very well in player acquisitions, drafts, and such. They have an incredible roster, but you got to pay these guys. And after this season, after the 2024 season, they're going to pay Brock Purdy top dollar. I don't know if they should, but they may have no choice. So that is the dilemma with Brandon Aiyuk. Rumors still circulating the 49ers could move him. Okay, so John Johnson is back with Rams. We talked about that extensively during our roundtable. And it got me thinking, which players are the most upset with his arrival? Well, there's Russ Yeast, who now could be at best the 5th safety on this roster, but his spot could be secure because he can play that star position. Jason Taylor, last year's 7th round draft pick, man, if he doesn't kick butt in special teams, he's probably done. Don't want to mark him as such, but he cannot be happy about John Johnson's arrival. And then there's Tanner Ingle, kind of the same deal. He's a guy I kind of liked. Watched him in the preseason last year. Looked like he had the potential to be an impact NFL player. He could be on the outs now. And even Cameron Kinchins, the rookie, his chances of starting at least early in the year might be gone. All speculation here. Who knows what the Rams are thinking with their secondary. And to demonstrate what a mess it is back there on the back end for the Rams, in a good way, not a bad mess, not a hot mess, just a mess trying to figure out what they might be doing. Consider that ESPN has Quentin Lake, John Johnson, and Darion Kendrick all as backups. And that's why, and Scott Richmond mentioned this a couple months ago, Our Lads is a much better source as far as depth charts go. Looks a lot more accurate. They have Lake as the nickel back, and that could be wrong still, but they have Johnson as the starting safety, Yeast, Kendrick, and Kinchins all as second stringers. As I was perusing the Rams roster, lo and behold, took a look at this defensive tackle out of Central Missouri, David Olajiga, and he's an exempt international player out of London, England. Did not even know that. That SJ39 interview with DeMarco Farr, where he is talking about the Hall of Fame and his chances of getting into the Hall of Fame, got me thinking, what Rams and former Rams have a shot at the Hall of Fame? And someone published a similar perspective on this. I don't know who it was, and they limit it to 3 players, really: Aaron Donald, Torrey Holt, and Matthew Stafford. I'd include a few other guys. I think SJ39 has a chance. I think Cooper Kupp has to be considered. He's going to have to pick it up, but don't count him out. What about Johnny Hekker? I know he's a punter. Hey, you know what? If he had stayed with the Rams, his chances might have been better. One of the best punters in the history of the league. Puka Nacua, hey, I know it's early. I'm not saying he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, but considering what he did in his first year, hey, in 10 years, we might be talking about him. And 2 other guys we have to consider. What about Sean McVay? He's headed in that direction. And maybe even Les Snead. Les Snead has really impacted front offices across the league about how they approach drafts, the salary cap, and building rosters. Les Snead probably isn't going to make it, but you have to give it some thought. A few episodes ago, I mentioned that the Rams have no players left from their 2020 draft, a draft that we originally thought was pretty good. They're all gone now, so let's check in on them. Cam Akers, a free agent. Rumors the Vikings are about to re-sign him now. Van Jefferson, currently listed as wide receiver 2 for the Steelers right now. Terrell Lewis, edge rusher with the Eagles, really deep on the depth chart, buried on the depth chart, and he may not last. Terrell Burgess, the safety, he was on the Commanders last year, still a free agent. Bryson Hopkins, the tight end, still a free agent. Jordan Fuller, he's with the Panthers. Looks like he has secured the starting free safety job, at least at this point. Clay Johnston, the linebacker, spent some time with the Eagles, but did not play last year, still a free agent. Sam Sloman, our favorite place kicker, been done for a while. And then there's Tremaine Ankrum, interior offensive lineman with the Seahawks. He is listed as the 3rd string left guard. I have a feeling he'll stick with that team because he can play a couple of different positions. So there you have it. And, you know, I wouldn't say this was a disastrous draft because all these guys are gone. Akers, Jefferson, and Fuller were significant contributors to the success of this team. Even Burgess and Lewis had their moments. A lot of these guys, It was really about injuries. But looking back right now, not a draft we can celebrate. Bill Barnwell of ESPN rated all the NFL teams by their skill position talent, and the Rams came in at number 9. Probably got dinged at the tight end position, I suspect. And I'm going to keep on plugging this. The Rams need to have a running back celebration at halftime at some point, if for no other reason than to promote the greatness of SJ39. Have him standing out there at the 50-yard line with Lawrence McCutcheon, Wendell Tyler, John Cappelletti, and most importantly, Eric Dickerson and Marshall Faulk, 2 Hall of Famers. SJ39 standing with those guys. Man, why not? Why can't the Rams do this? And of course, an opportunity to bring Todd Gurley back into the fold. Give him a big hug, Sean McVay. Celebrate the great running back history of the Los Angeles Rams. And start promoting SJ39 for the Hall of Fame already. Please, he deserves it. Hey, we talked about the 2020 draft of the Los Angeles Rams. Let's talk real quickly about the 2021 draft. Similar situation. We do have 3 guys left from that draft, a draft that we originally felt really good about, and I still do overall. I think it was a decent draft, but let's check in on all of these guys real quickly before we check in on the New Orleans Saints. So 3 guys still with the Rams, our top 3 picks: Ernest Jones, Bobby Brown, and Tutu Atwell. Next up, wide receiver Ben Skowronek. Where is he at now? Well, he's the number 2 slot wide receiver for the Texans behind Tank Dell. Remember, the Rams made that trade, Skowronek to the Texans. Robert Rochelle, remember him? Man, he seemed like he had so much potential, so athletic. Had his moments with the Rams, but just could not get it done on the outside. He is the 3rd string left cornerback for the Packers at this point. Jake Funk. How can we forget Jake Funk? He is buried on the Lions depth chart at running back. And Jacob Harris, still don't know if he's a tight end or a wide receiver. Well, the Eagles seem to be convinced he's a wide receiver. He's actually the backup to Devonta Smith at this time, ahead of John Ross. So the Eagles might think they're onto something there. And then there's Ernest Brown, the defensive end. He moved on over to the 49ers, and I missed this. At some point, the 49ers moved on from him already, and he is with the Bucs now, the 3rd string right defensive end. So he's over there practicing with Greg Gaines on a daily basis, apparently. And the other guy, Chris Garrett, out of the NFL at this point. Last I heard, he was with the St. Louis Battlehawks. Next up, we check in on the Saints. Hey, let's check in on another NFL team that the Rams should be concerned about. Well, concerned about because this team is on the Rams' schedule this year, and that would be the New Orleans Saints. Rams hold a 44-35 edge historically on the Saints, and that's despite the fact that the Saints had a 7-game winning streak over the Rams from 1990 to 1993. Their last meeting, that was that Thursday night game last year. Rams were up 30-7 and let the Saints get back into it. Rams ended up winning 30-22, but man, that game was much more stressful than it should have been. And any games that should be mentioned, well, come on. It's that 2018 NFC Championship game played in January of 2019. That was the game with the controversial non-pass interference call. And then Dante Fowler forces the interception. John Johnson with the INT. Greg the Leg kicks the game-winning field goal, and the Rams go on to the Super Bowl. This year, these 2 teams meet Week 13 in New Orleans on December 1st. What did the Saints do last year? Well, they started out 5-4 and then lost 3 straight. Won 4 of their last 5 games. The only loss among those games, the one to the Rams, where they almost came back and stole a win. So they finished at 9-8, which was a 2-win improvement over the previous year. So the Saints finished tied with the Buccaneers for the NFC South Division title lost that tiebreaker, ended up in a three-way tie for a wild card spot with the Packers and Seahawks, and they lost those tiebreakers as well, and they stayed home for the playoffs. Offensively, they scored 402 points, just 2 less than the Rams, but just 21st rushing the ball. They always have a solid defense, especially pass defense, one of the best in the league. They allowed the second lowest pass completion percentage in the league. Struggled a little bit more against the run, though. Coaching staff, led by Dennis Allen, more of a defensive-oriented coach. Offensive coordinator is Clint Kubiak, and the defensive coordinator, Joe Woods. Who were their departures this year of note? They lost 2 interior defensive linemen. Shai Tuttle, he went to the Steelers, and David Onyemata went to the divisional rival Falcons, and defensive end Marcus Davenport went to the Vikings. Linebacker Caden Ellis also went to the Falcons. You never want to see players depart. It's unavoidable, but you don't want them going to divisional rivals. Free agent signings, they picked up Chase Young from the 49ers, basically replaces Marcus Davenport, and they also added wide receiver Cedric Wilson from the Dolphins and linebacker Willie Gay from the Bears. Their draft picks, I loved their first 2. Talisi Fuaga, the big offensive lineman out of Oregon State, they already have him penciled in as a starting left tackle, and the cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. They also drafted a quarterback a lot of Ram fans had their eyes on in the mid-rounds, Spencer Rattler, and they selected Bub Means. That was one of Paul Walia's favorite players in the draft. See if he can make his mark in the NFL. So who are their key players? Well, Derek Carr, over 3,800 yards passing. The running game was pretty mediocre. Alvin Kamara, man, he seems like he's been there forever. Played in 13 games, just under 700 yards rushing. Chris Olave has really emerged as a true number 1 wide receiver, over 1,100 yards, receiving 5 TDs. I remember the Detroit Lions celebrating when the Saints selected Olave, allowing the Lions to select Jameson Williams. I think that's worked out a little better for the Saints. And they also have Taysom Hill, who's a dual threat quarterback, running back, fullback. I don't know what you want to call him. On defense, the most important guy is cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, one of the best in the business. Tyrann Mathieu has been around forever. Defensive end Cameron Jordan, he's a good one. And middle linebacker Demario Davis. Ram connections on the Saints. You know what? I couldn't find a single one on their roster. However, they have a senior defensive assistant, Peter Guinta. He spent 4 years with the St. Louis Rams, 3 as a defensive coordinator. This is in the Vermeil era from 1997 to 2000. Did a really good job getting that defense on track. 1 year as a defensive backs coach, 3 years as the defensive coordinator. Their schedule is the 3rd easiest, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're in a relatively weak division, although the Falcons seem to be coming on. They get the NFC East and the AFC West, meaning they'll get the Eagles, Cowboys, and Chiefs, among other teams. Their over-under win total in Vegas currently set at 7.5. That seems pretty spot on. What are the keys to their season? Well, number 1, their defense has to continue playing at a high level. Number 2, they need to sweep the Carolina Panthers. If they lose one of those games or both, they are done. Got to win the games you're supposed to win, and those are 2 games that the Saints have to put in their pocket. Number 3, they need to find a way to get the running game going. Jamal Williams coming over from the Lions, he may help. Fuaga's going to help for sure. Taysom Hill is not the answer, though. A gimmick guy, a big, sturdy gimmick guy. They need to get their traditional running game going. And number 4, it's all about Derek Carr. 2nd year there. Started to settle in late last season. Over the last 4 games, threw 12 touchdowns and just 1 interception. If they get more of that, the Saints might have a chance. My final word on the Saints. Well, they have a tough draw. There are 3 odd games that they play that divisional rivals do not play. Didn't work in their favor. They get the Browns with Deshaun Watson back. They get the Rams, who seem to be humming along, and they get the Packers, who look very good as well. All three teams on the upswing. The second place schedule not working out for the Saints. Now, predictions on the Saints are all over the place, but mostly centering on about 7 wins and 10 losses. I'm going with 6-11, 6 wins and 11 losses in Dennis Allen's final season coaching the Saints. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.